Welcome back to another episode of Red Titan. In today's episode, the user asks the question, what is the creepiest thing you see in the woods, or in the mountains, or in deserts, or caves, or in small towns, or remote or rural areas, or while on large bodies of water, or while on an aircraft, or a nautical vessel? And here are all the crazy answers. I was driving home after an extremely late night at work. I lived in the middle of nowhere about a mile before I got there. A woman covered in blood jumped out of the woods into the middle of the road screaming. I panicked and went around her, then slammed on the brakes to help. Her boyfriend had beaten her and was currently chasing after her in the woods. I got her in my car and called the police. They met us at the hospital because I told them there was no way I was waiting on the side of the road when he was coming. This is probably less scary than a lot of the other posts, but I was pretty sure I was going to be the nameless victim at the start of a horror movie to show how dangerous the monster is. Basically, my dad and I were walking through the woods when we came across a young moose's leg lying on the ground. It looked like I had been violently torn off with no sign of the rest of the moose anywhere. It was fresh, with blood still on the wound, probably no more than a couple hours old. My dad is a pretty skilled hunter, so he handed me his axe and he was carrying, and he told me to watch for wolves while I started looking for tracks. After a little bit, he came back saying, "Well, that's weird. Normally if it was wolves, you'd be able to find paw prints, but I can't see any. Also no bear prints, so I have no idea what killed this." And so I'm like, "You didn't find any tracks at all?" And his very reassuring response was, "Well, I did find what appears to be the mama moose tracks headed this way." Showing me the tracks. "You can see how her stride is a lot longer here. Whatever killed her baby, she didn't want to fight it. She just took off running." He then pulls out of his bear spray and holds it at the ready as we kept walking deeper to the woods, with the unnamed, non-track living predator armed with bear spray and an axe. When I was about 7 or 8, my parents sent me to a local summer camp that they would pick me up from in the afternoons. I never really liked it because the kids were mean. Everything was either broken or not clean, and the counselors obviously didn't care. I remember the girls' changing room had a door that led out to the woods, but the doorknob was gone, so it was unlocked all the time and you could see into it. This was primarily where the girls changed into their bathing suits, and there was usually someone blocking the view while we changed so the boys couldn't look in. Well, one day I'm changing alone, and someone wasn't blocking the door. I look over and see an eye peeping through the hole watching me change. I pull the rest of my clothes back on quickly and run out to tell my twin brother. I tell my dad that I don't want to go back to that camp anymore, and he begrudgingly takes us out of the camp pretty soon after because he knew how much we hated it. Years later, the camp has been closed down for many years, and I've asked my dad about it. He gets really grim and tells me it shut down because a 13-year-old boy had the 7-year-old girl in the woods right behind the girl's bathroom a few weeks after I had told him about someone watching me change. In a patch of trees off of a field near where I keep my horse, there's one of these big oil drums sealed up with a very heavy boulder on top. The only way it could have got there is being placed by a tractor or some sort of heavy lifting equipment. My partner and I try to push it off, but no luck. I don't know why, but it creeps me out every time I see it. I regularly walk my dogs past it to see if they show any interest, but honestly, after watching them look for a toy that was clearly in my lap, I'm not sure I have much faith in them anymore. My girlfriend and I were hiking along some abandoned railroad tracks, and we get to a small bridge going over a little creek. I'm about to go exploring under the bridge when she points something out. I look over, and in the woods across from us, I see a guy. I'm like, whatever, and keep headed down to the creek area. Then the guy stands up and he's naked. We immediately backtrack pretty quickly to get back from there, and once we were like 1 minute down the trail, I look back, and this naked dude just standing in the middle of the trail watching us walk away. This is quite a few years ago now, but me and my friend had this really cool spot to hang out in the woods. You had to walk in the middle of a creek for a km and duck through sharp bushes and thistles. The hike was well rewarding though. The spot was about half an acre big. It was pure green grass on an incline with a beautiful clear water ponds everywhere. There was tons of wildlife and the butterflies that lived there, so there's always tons of butterflies. So the story begins on the way to this place. My friend Levi and I were walking along the river on the way to the spot. It was in the middle of a valley, and nobody else ever went down there. Suddenly, Levi stopped moving and ducked into a bush. I did the same because I thought there must have been a large animal somewhere. I saw him staring up the hill, so I looked up too. There were two people standing at the top of the hill, heaving back and forth a lifeless body. We watched as they threw the lifeless corpse down the hill as it bounced off trees and eventually got stuck on a tree at the bottom. Then they took off. Me and him were terrified, and I was shaking so badly I couldn't speak. So we decided to verify it was a real body. Levi got about 4 feet away before screaming, "It has nostrils! It ain't real! Run!" So of course we take off running, and I glanced back to see the two people run back to the top of the hill. Me and him ran 2 km through thick brush and trees to get away from them. The next day, we were with his parents driving to town, and we saw like 10 fire trucks at the school closest to the forest. Terrified, we told his parents, bawling our eyes out and worried that we were going to get murdered. His mom started laughing at us and said they were training for search and rescue. That was a dummy that the firemen had to find. I never slept as good as I did that night. My friend and I were chilling in the woods one day, back in high school, and see a dog walking by, later followed by this kid. He looked troubled, so we asked if he needed help. He obliged, telling us he was dog sitting for his friend and the dog got loose. So we spent a good hour following this dog and kid around, going deeper and deeper into the woods. Eventually, I finally got the dog to come to me, but it wasn't wearing a collar, so I wasn't able to get a hold. My friend and I looked away for just a few seconds to discuss strategy, and then we turned back around. The boy and the dog were both gone. It was like they completely vanished. Keep in mind, it was autumn, so any footsteps could be heard from quite afar, but it was just silent. Not a single trace of them anywhere. Still don't really know what happened. Maybe they ran away real quick. Who knows? Was definitely enough to creep us out though. I was a Boy Scout, camping with my group of older buddies and an adult leader in Yellowstone. We had been backpacking for 2 days and stopped in a beautiful little clearing at the bottom of some huge tree-covered hills. The sun started to set. We made a fire, and I began to climb up into the trees to dig a hole and fill it back up. You know what I mean. As I squat there, basking in the moonlight, appreciating the glow of the fire among the trees, I looked up to a ridgeline a few hundred yards away where the moon was rising, and I you not, I saw a damn big cougar crest the hill and just watch our fire. It was likely no danger to me, but seeing the outline, that unmistakably shoulder crawl they do, was haunting. I watched it sit there for a good 15 minutes until I was called back by my worried buds. I pointed the cat out to them when I got done because it was still just watching us. Crazy. In order to get back home from a popular kebab restaurant, I need to walk a short path through the woods. Along the way, there's an extremely old, abandoned, partially collapsed chapel, and occasionally I'll stand there for a few seconds admiring it. It's quite beautiful in its own way. One day during the winter season, I decided to rest there for a minute, so I placed my kebab on the bench right next to the chapel and just stood there, taking in the scenery. It was already rather dark and the woods were almost completely silent, but right as I was about to continue my walk, I heard footsteps rapidly getting louder. It was a child running towards me, and as soon as it realized I was there, it started to repeatedly scream, "Run! He is coming!" or variations of that same sentiment. I was a bit perplexed by the situation, so I watched the child run past me without moving an inch myself. It didn't take another second for a much more weighty pair of footsteps appear. I can make out a silhouette in the distance, which seemed to be their origin at the exact point in time. I got really scared. As opposed to running, I decided to hide in the chapel next to the altar, and after tripping over an old broken chapel bench, I reached my hiding place. The footsteps got louder and louder, but right as they approached the vicinity of the chapel, they suddenly went silent. About 15 seconds of complete quietness had passed just for the words, "Oi! You fucking idiot! Left your kebab on the bench!" to break the silence. Turns out, it was a resident of the very same street I inhabit. His nephew was visiting and he wanted to race him to the kebab stand. I don't know whether this was the right place to post this. Ultimately, this was more stupid than creepy. I was in a large wooded area near my BF's home, with him hanging out nearly at midnight. We had gone in pretty deep and it required a good amount of climbing. The closest path was maybe 5 to 7 minutes climbing down, so it was highly unlikely someone could be at that spot the time of the night besides us. As we were kissing and stuff, He thought he saw a shadow move 20 to 25 feet to the left of us, climbing, but it stopped suddenly when my BF looked at it. He told me to be wary, and that exact moment we saw a dark figure climbing a little up, but diagonally, like he tried to go directly above where we were. We didn't move and watched him until he closed the horizontal gap and was directly above us, maybe 15 feet of steep downhill thick forest. Then he began to come towards us. Without skipping a bit, my BF grabbed my hand and we almost ran downhill to the path. We made it in less than 2 minutes while still holding hands and listening to the man running behind us. We ran as fast as we could down the path and out the forest, where there was a cafe, some basketball and tennis courts next to the wooded hill. And of course, people. As we realized we came really close to being mugged or worse, we vowed never to go there at night again. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you did, please like the video, subscribe for more content coming soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.